Astrocartography is essentially showing you your map of the world and where planetary influences in your birth chart are more pronounced.
A lot of times, even for me, I think about it the other way around, where I want the safety, I want the security. But it is, in fact, when you go outside of that comfort zone that you find the places that truly feel like home.
There's a story in Hong Kong for you. There's a story in New Zealand for you. And it's just about what time in life that story opens up to you and becomes alive.
It's how each person perceives it and also what their sort of gut is telling them in that moment.
The more that we really follow our heart and let our heart guide us to those curiosities, to follow those excitements, we'll always find our way back home to ourselves.
We reset the fuck out of my life in Miami.
We do touch on some heavy topics, and you can always check the description for more details on this episode. The TURTZED podcast and content in this episode is presented solely for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. Neither I nor my guests are healthcare or mental health care providers, and we are not licensed or authorized to provide professional medical advice. For more information, please see our policy at TURTZED.com.
It's so often we're told to look to the stars for navigation, and today we're going to talk about how you can use those to navigate your life. Helena, welcome to TURTZED.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you about this incredible tool and how it can support people in their lives with knowing where to go.
Well, I feel like I am at a crossroads in my life of where I want to go to next for many reasons. But before we dive into that, I would love for you to describe what astrocartography is so that people understand what it is that we are going to be talking about today.
Yeah. Astrocartography is essentially showing you your map of the world and where planetary influences in your birth chart are more pronounced. So think of it as like your own treasure map, your own map of your life story and where events happen for you, where your relationships are, where you have life stories and events take place. And so those places that you feel called to in the world, those places maybe where you've had difficulty or you have, you had major things that were difficult for you in a place, that is all written on your map of the world. And it was written at the time that you took your first breath. So just as you have a natal chart that shows you your whole life story and your biography of what you're going to do, your themes, your stories, your map was based on that birth chart. And so your map is going to have all these colorful lines, and they were created by this man named Jim Lewis, and Jim Lewis was the guy who invented astrocartography, and he just put all of the relocation charts from your birth chart onto a map and just shows you where the most influential energies are.
And how did you get into this?
So I've been into astrology for as long as I can remember, but it wasn't until I moved to France in 2018 that I felt this sense of home and groundedness. Like the first day that I moved over to France, it was just this feeling of I'm home. I feel so solid and anchored and grounded and safe here. And I didn't know what that was. And it wasn't until a month or so later, I was listening to a podcast about Earth vortex centers and how places have energies in the world that I started going down a rabbit hole of like, places have energies, places have stories. And then I stumbled upon astrocartography and I've just been obsessed with it ever since. And I look back at my life at, all the different places I've lived, like New York and Virginia and California and all the places I've traveled to in the world. And the map was so literal to the experiences that I had or the people that I met or the lessons I learned. And since 2021, when I opened up my business, I've just been talking nonstop to everyone I can about this incredible tool.
When you think about this idea of astrology overlaid with location, there's so much to what we go through and how we interpret things. How do you view what is going on in someone's life and what is shown on their map and sort of the balance that goes back and forth between the two of, do we look for the things that we are told to find, or are we finding the things that were already written in the map?
I find that people are often going to the places already that are labeled on their map. So it's kind of like astrology and astrocartography. It's not causing you to do something, it's not making you feel a certain way. It's showing that which is going on, the decisions you are making, the choices you are making, the places you are going to. And I've just noticed this with so many of my clients. People will have an opportunity come up in some part of the world, and they'll feel this draw to go to that part of the world at that time. And it just happens to be that the time that they're there, they're having a major transit in their timing, and they're going to one of their best places in the world for what they're seeking or what that opportunity is. And so astrocartography really just gives us a sense of clarity and big picture understanding about where are our places and where stories will eventually come alive for us at some point in life. And so sometimes there'll be places on the map where people don't feel a call yet, but there's a person there that will come up in their life later on 10 years from now. Or perhaps it's a culture or, the food, the language, the music that someone's drawn to, but they don't wanna live there. It's just a part of the world where they've always felt a sense of resonance or a connection with that part of the world.
Oh, that's so interesting because in my mind, it was these are the places that could bring out vulnerability in you or bring out clarity and chaos. And what you just said is so illuminating because if there was a place that someone else was from or a culture that you really feel connected to, that is a whole other level of what this really can be.
Yeah.
As you think about having these conversations with people and your personal story with Paris, what did it bring out in you in those moments of clarity? How did your life change?
Yeah. I mean, so here in Paris where I live, I have a Saturn ascendant line, which is a tough line. It represents challenges, but it also represents stepping into one's authority and one's expertise and kind of getting really serious about their life and why they're here and their purpose. And so that's one aspect to it. And then I also have a Venus IC line, which is about loving where I live and feeling a sense of home and building a business from home, working from home, having a beautiful personal life in terms of the domestic and like the grounding of the land and feeling connected to a culture. Those are all things I have here. And it was fate that I was brought here. Like I didn't choose France. It was only because my husband applied for a million jobs and we wanted to leave the United States and it was the one job he got. And so it just ended up taking us here. So there was a fatedness of I came here to step into my purpose, even with the challenges of what that entails, the difficulty that comes with being seen, being visible, focusing more on work and time and the almost obsession with time. That's a Saturnian thing. Saturn lines bring a sense of time ticking or mortality or longevity. And so there's this kind of like heavier background noise that Saturn always brings. And yet I love it. I've thrived here the last 8 years because I found something that's bigger than myself and gives me a greater meaning than anything I've ever done before. And it's helped me mature and also not be so emotional and reactive to situations when they present themselves. It's like, okay, we got the Saturn hat on, my body, my physical identity and self here. Let's solve the problems. Let's look at things objectively. Let's put in the work. And there's been moments of hard times here, and it's also been so fulfilling that it's been so worth it. And I love it here.
There's something interesting about the way that you phrase that because it's almost as if it's the lens in which you are viewing this part of your timeline. And it doesn't mean that you're going to stay in France forever or you're going to move, but it sounds to me like as you reviewed your own chart, you were able to put on a lens that allowed you to have a specific perspective on the things that were happening to you over the last 8 years. And so it almost created this path, but it was more like directional. Like it was sort of keeping you within the bounds of where you were going because you were looking at it from the perspective of challenge, but what else could come out of it. And I'm curious if you find that is a typical response for people that you work with when they're when they're looking at their own charts, because it's a very nuanced way to look at this. But I think it's really important to look at the nuance in all of this, because it's not meant to be this is what it is. It's sort of it's how each person perceives it, and also what their sort of gut is telling them in that moment.
Yeah. And I think to be a good astrologer, you've got to be able to see multiple angles of everything. Like that's what we do in our jobs is we're translators. We see the symbolism in a chart and then we look at the pros, the cons, the strengths, the weaknesses, the potential things that can come up with this planet in this part of the chart in this location. And so I often see like on social media and with my clients too, I say a Saturn line or a Mars line and people immediately become so afraid. They're terrified or they get scared or they feel like, "Oh, I don't want that." And it's like, "No, we've gotta look at your chart and the nuances of your unique Saturn or your unique Mars." Like in your chart, Charles, you've got such a strong Mars, and Mars is a malefic. It is a planet that brings discord and it's good at protecting and defending, but it's also good at destroying things. And yet, not all of us are going to have difficult Marses in our chart, right? Some of us might have a Mars that's about courage and leadership and adventure. And there can be a theme or a story around stepping into one's independence or self assertion and leaning into that courage. And so that's why, as an astrologer, it's always top of mind for me is thinking about the ways that every one of us is so unique and nuanced because of our charts are so unique and our experiences are going to be unique as a result. Like when I go to my Mars line, I have a Mars line in Greece, and yeah, it does bring up a little bit of anger and impulsivity and irritability, and it's one of my most successful places in the world when I launch, when I open up my courses, or when I need courage and I'm feeling a little low confidence or low energy. I go to my Mars line and it's like, here we go. I got the fire. And I think, especially because of social media, a lot of us don't see nuance in that way because we see social media content that says, don't go to your Saturn line, don't go to your Mars line, don't do this. And it's all fear mongering. There's no thoughtful, considerate discussion, contemplation about what that could mean for you.
Two things can be true at the same time. And I think when we look at social media today, I've been making more videos about pop culture, and it is unbelievable to me how people can only hear one thing. It is so hard for people to be able to hold two opposing truths together. And for me, the nuance of my healing and the things that I went through was being able to find both things to be true and be okay with it. And I think that what you're saying about, yes, Mars has this. I love destroying things. I love tearing them apart and rebuilding them. But there's a nuance to that. I don't like destroying things to just destroy them. I want to destroy them when they're not working, when they're broken, when they're not serving the people they're meant to serve, and rebuild them. And I think that that is such a specific thing going on in the world right now, where everyone is looking at things black and white and that is it. And it's like this, it almost feels like people are doing it because they have to hold on to something, and they know they can't hold on to two things. So they're just grabbing the first thing that they relate to. But it creates, I mean, even in the comments, you're like watching it go back and forth between people. And I'm like 25 comments later on one person's thing because they both can't see that both things can be true.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and it's there's almost an element of control or the desire to control things so that we feel safe in our knowledge or awareness of things that yeah, and there's also because of that need to control, there's less open-mindedness and curiosity too. That curious that's so Gemini, all of this that we're talking about is so and Libra too, and you're Libra, and Libra and Geminis are the 2 zodiac signs that are associated with seeing 2 sides of things or being able to see multiple sides of anything.
Well, you've now talked about my chart as well as a few other aspects of the chart. And I think it would be interesting to dive in as if you were teaching me and the audience about charts and what they're able to find, and I'm happy to be the guinea pig. So let's take
Yeah.
my Libra butt and dive in.
Let's do it. So, right now, timing wise, you're in what's called a nodal return. And this happens once every 19 years. So, this is a very special, rare time in one's life. And it's basically kind of a karmic, dharmic time of fate and stepping into your destiny. And you have the North Node, which is increase, desire. It's what you're going after, what you want. It's in your fifth house of creative self expression and expressing yourself truthfully, honestly, being yourself. And you have the South Node, which is something that's tiring or a bit draining or it's depleting your energy, but it's another theme that's going on that's really important in your life forever, but especially now. And that's about audience or the followers or groups of people and how they receive your creative expression and your honesty and your authenticity. And so we have the South Node in your 11th house, and then we have the North Node in your fifth. And so what's interesting is that while this very important, significant timing is happening in your life, you're on the East Coast. That's where you are right now. And the East Coast is where you have the nodes. The nodes, those like karmic, dharmic, fated points in your chart, are going right through New York. So there's something about New York. There's a reason why you're there now. How long do you plan to be there? Because, I mean, this story is going to kind of wrap up this summer. So once we get into the summertime, the nodes are gonna shift and you might feel a call to leave because you got what you needed out of the lunar node experience in New York. But has it felt like a sense of fatedness being on the East Coast, especially now, like in the last, I would say 6 months?
I think where I am now, yes. I was looking at, do I go back into New York, like more specifically into the city? And does that make the most sense for me right now? Which is interesting that you're saying that as we head into the summer, that shifts, because that's what I'm thinking about now, where I am definitely ready to move to my next chapter, but trying to figure out what that is.
Yeah. And you also have the Venus on the midheaven on the East Coast, which is it's great for being an artist, a designer, a creator. You can make a lot of money. You can do very well, especially in terms of audience growth, friends, connections, social networks. All of that is really supportive on the East Coast. But there's a couple places I have picked out for you that I'm really curious to ask you about. But you do have some really powerful energy in Los Angeles. You have a Jupiter Venus paran. And for any of you guys curious what a paran means, it's essentially a latitude line. So it's like showing the difference between, okay, what's the energy in LA versus what's the difference between that and San Diego, or the energy in LA versus San Francisco. So whether you go north or south, that's going to change the vibe of the area. And this is called a latitude crossing or a paran line. And you have one of the best ones, Jupiter Venus, going right through LA, close to Santa Barbara area. And it's all about enjoyment, pleasure, happiness, good food, connection with people, can be love. And you also have the sun on your ascendant. So it's a place of really stepping into your true self and expressing yourself with clarity and power and conviction. And so, this energy, this solar illuminating life force energy, your willpower is literally on your sense of self when you're on the West Coast. But you also have a home line. You have the moon IC line out on the West Coast, which is a place of home and like feeling a sense of comfort or groundedness and like feeling very stable there. Is California at all a place that you've been drawn to in the past? Or
It is. I think that I think there's fear around it for some reason. When I think about moving to LA, there's this fear of many things, but there's an immediate almost pushback. Like it is intriguing. And then at the same time, I'm like, hold on a second.
yeah, totally. And that's where it's like your free will and your intuition is going to tell you where to go. So, like these places, these are forever places in the world for you where there's stories happening. So, you might not be feeling the call now, but it could be 20 years from now. You feel the call to go out to Southern California, but you've got other locations too. And so your intuition is going to guide you on is this the right place or is this the right place? Because you've got many places in the world that would support you. Another location of a place is you've got a Jupiter IC line going through France into Norway. And the Jupiter IC line is about feeling a sense of joy, faith, optimism, growth in your life, in your home living situation. So it could be buying a property. It could also just be loving where you live and feeling a sense of exuberance in the location that you're in. And it's very exciting, especially now, timing wise, like I would say the next 2 years, this area is particularly activated for you timing wise. And that Jupiter line is going up through the south of France. It's going right up through France. And then it hits the Brussels, Belgium area, kind of random, Brussels. But at that location, you also have another line crossing your joyful Jupiter line. And that's the moon line. And so it's a feeling of happiness and joy, and that's going right through the Brussels area. You'd also get a bit of this in Amsterdam too, but that latitude of Brussels in Belgium, as well as like if you continue that to Cologne, Germany, it's about feeling a sense of family, connection, peace, tranquility, and a relaxed feeling within your sense of self. So that's another place in the world that's really magical for you. And that home line, I call it the retirement line because it's great for people to like buy a property or have a family or just like settle somewhere. That line is also going through Norway along the fjords. So if you've ever wanted to go to the Norwegian fjords, that's a place I would recommend for you. And in Stavanger, which is a beautiful city right on the water, it's this great fun city. You've got some really magical energy in that location too.
There's something potentially exciting that could possibly be happening in almost that exact area. So it's very interesting because there's no other connection than the thing that I'm thinking about that I found out about yesterday that would connect to that.
Wow. Yeah, and you have the sun, your Libra sun and your Mercury Libra. It relocates the ninth house, which is like I always like to think of this as like the joys of being abroad or like being in a foreign country, learning a lot, studying, teaching, writing. If you've ever wanted to write a book or like speak more, teach more, there's going to be a lot more activations of that story when you're there.
Okay, we're gonna pause for 1 second so I can tell you what it is. I I got a call back for a which is literally like right there on the border of the Netherlands. It's like just like no, it's wild. Yesterday, and the interview is tomorrow.
And it's being activated because of Uranus and Gemini hitting your Jupiter, which is it's going to activate this whole story for the next year and a half.
Wow. Which I like can't put in this episode unless I get it, but
And the ninth house is public speaking, and that's where your Libra sun and your Mercury, which is speaking, moves to.
yeah. So we'll see if I get it, but that's
Oh
wild
my
that you said
God,
that.
that's so exciting. Did you apply or did someone nominate you?
I applied.
Wow. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh.
Yeah. Okay, I have to think about how to get back into this.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's already written in your chart and timing and everything.
It's in October.
Oh my God.
Okay. Okay. Let me think of okay, we'll keep going, but that's so wild. It's interesting to hear you talk about these places because even the LA thing, right? To your point about it doesn't mean that it's today, it doesn't mean it's in 20 years, but there have been a lot of really great things that have happened for me in LA and south of LA in, Orange County area, San Diego area. And I think about taking risks and I think about being in a place where I can literally pick up and go anywhere because I've just untangled my life to that point. And there's part of me that loves New York and likes that there could be a home base, but also the ability to travel to LA for a month or to travel to Europe for a month and figuring out ways that I can live a less conventional life and figure out ways that I can follow that creativity. I think for the last kind of year and a half, I've navigated home and figuring out my health and figuring out career. And I feel like things are progressing and they're moving. And also, where I currently am in Connecticut has been amazing. And I'm ready for that next chapter. And I'm ready to take those risks and figure those things out. But there is still a calling for me, as you kind of said, where I don't want to say it's a safety blanket, because I don't know that you can't take New York with you. But I think there's a feeling of like an established home where maybe I'm not there all the time, but when I do go, because the city is so crazy, like I have my own space that's just mine. And I have been to New York and stayed in hotels when I was living in Florida, and it never felt the same as when I was in my own apartment in New York, where I had my own things. And so it's just interesting to hear you talk about these places and then reflect on my experience when I was in those places. And believe me,
Yeah.
if I didn't feel that way, I would be telling you, and I'd be like, well, what does it mean if I didn't feel this, right? Like when you were talking about LA, I'm like, I have a lot of fear around that, right? Like I have a lot of fear for different reasons. But to your point, it's like, okay, well, this is just a good piece of information. But at the same time, I may have fear today, but that doesn't mean amazing things have not happened for me in LA.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to think of these astrocartography lines as like when you were born, that story was there, but it doesn't mean you need to go there this year, you know? And you can connect with these places in the world through other ways. Like it could be you have great friends in LA that help you and support you, or you have some sort of, maybe there's a friend that's a podcaster, or there's people you wanna connect with that are in LA. Even though you don't live there, you have that beautiful Venus-Jupiter energy around the people that you meet, because that part of the world is kind of it's baked into the story of your life. And so whether you move there or not, or even travel there, it's like you always have that energetic connection, and that's kind of how I view astrocartography. Is it's almost like energetically you're existing simultaneously everywhere at once at one time. So you have stories happening all at once. Like there's a story in Hong Kong for you, there's a story in New Zealand for you, there's a story in Norway, there's a story in LA, and it's just about what time in life that story opens up to you and becomes alive. And also, even you can bring that energy into your life now. Like, for instance, I love to watch YouTube walking tours, like vlogs of like different cities in the world that I love. And those places are connected with my astrocartography. When I watch a walking tour of Sydney, Australia, I feel really good. And I've got my sun line going through Sydney. So it's like I'm able to tap into the energy of who I am in Sydney and the potentials of Sydney right here, right now.
I love that point because I think that people are so literal. Even for me today, it felt literal because there are feelings wrapped up in it. But I love this idea of channeling that energy or figuring out a way to bring that energy to you in a moment of clarity to help you with something or to create a moment of clarity. I'd be curious if I were to ask you a question of like, I want to do this with my career. Is there a more optimal place to do that in the world? Is that something that astrocartography can show you?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And it can be as specific as what your goals are. So if you wanted to publish a book, we would be looking at the Jupiter MC line, for instance, because Jupiter is associated with publishing and public speaking. And so you got that one Jupiter line in that part of Europe we talked about. If you wanted to be a martial artist, we'd look to like certain lines, like a Mars line for that. If you wanted to work with animals, a Mars line can bring up themes around that. If you wanted to be a media spokesperson or a journalist, we would look to Mercury lines or Pluto lines for being a lawyer or being in government work or working in politics. So yeah, there's specific careers that are connected with the different planets, and those places are on your map and can show you where you have more exposure, where you have more visibility, and where you're more likely to have a sense of growth and accomplishment and getting things done.
What's so fascinating to me is the ability to look at the world in a different way of not necessarily taking right from a specific area, but the energies that come along with it. and thinking about places where I've struggled in my life and where specifically was I, or, as you look to the future, if finding love was something like what area brings that energy? And to your point, is it the location? Is it someone from that area? It just opens your mind in a way to new possibilities. And I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where what I love about all of this stuff, and I told you this before we started the podcast, is that I think for me, it's not about it being right or wrong. It's about opening your mind to something that you may not have been open to before and you're thinking about differently because there's a little seed that's been planted. And you, to your point, have all the free will in the world to do nothing with it or to explore it.
Yeah, and that's what astrology really does is it opens our minds to different possibilities and also to the idea of like fate versus free will. Like for me, when I started getting into more ancient astrology, like Hellenistic astrology, dating back to 1st, 2nd century BC, it's like when I started learning advanced timing techniques of one's life, it made me start to really think about like, whoa, what if our life was fated? What if a lot of our life was written? How does that challenge everything I've believed my whole life that I manifest everything, that I create everything with my mind? It's almost like made me see the magic of life more and be more curious about what could be, the potentials of what could be and how much I don't know. And I just think that's the magical thing about astrology is it opens us up.
What has been for you the most surprising moment of your reading your astrological chart?
Hmm. Most surprising. I mean, the things that always shock me to this day are when something literally happens to me outside of my control. Like I hear about something and it's in the timing that day, and it's only that day. Like, I had a situation come up recently with like a legal issue, and I'd never experienced this before. And on the day that I heard about this, it was in the chart on in terms of legal matters, and Mars was hitting a point in the chart that represents having to deal with a contract or an issue with legal stuff. So it's stuff like that that continues to shock me all the time. Like when I get sick, it's always when there's a specific transit and I never expect it. I never prepare for it because I'm very spontaneous and go with the flow, and I let my intuition guide me with everything. Every day I'm like, "Okay, inner voice, what would you have me to do today?" But it's like I'm always shocked every time I get sick, it's a specific transit. Always. Or, something happens to my husband, a great news happens to my husband, and it's like I can see it in the chart that it's affecting him because there's a part of the chart that's all about your partner and what's happening to your partner. And so that's kind of the most surprising part for me. There's also been challenges too, like if you go really deep into ancient astrology and you start reading the intricacies of a chart, you might start to see some difficult things in your chart, like difficult placements or difficult storylines that can be activated by timing at some point 10, 20 years from now. And I don't personally believe that we humans are meant to have all the specifics of that information, but you can read it if you know how to read astrology. And I think for me, that's been kind of one of the toughest things to navigate as an astrologer, and I've gotten really into Buddhism and meditation and mindfulness and Stoic philosophy to couple that with my practice as being an astrologer because you do see hard things in the future timing of the world and things like that. And it's it's opened my idea to fate. It's made me trust more. It's made me surrender more. It's made me not be as reactive or emotional because I'm like, "Oh, it's happening in the chart. The chart is manifesting itself." And I've also had to learn how to be more present than ever before because of knowing astrology.
I think this idea of wanting to know what's going to happen in our lives, especially when we're in a dark place, and also being blissfully ignorant, there's this fine line of of knowing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's a magically complex journey being an astrologer. Astrologers are very obsessive. We love the information, we love the data, we love the detail, but also it's sometimes better not to know things. And I think knowing the big it's like, let's focus on the good things with like the astrocartography in our places and all that. And I can see why, especially now in like a time where there just seems to be a lot of fear online, and also like a lot of content does well when people, click on it, when there is more fear type things. And I'm really trying to inspire hope and faith and magic in the astrological spaces online because I think we really need it. And astrocartography is one of the ways that people can really change their lives. They can really, like, you get on a plane, you start traveling over a line, you're flying in the air and you're going over an astrocartography line, you can feel it. You can feel that you are shifting, your vibe, your energy is changing. I mean, I've noticed this so many times when I've gone flying across the world to Australia and so many places, and it's like, I even manifest when I'm flying. I'll be going over a Jupiter line, and Jupiter represents, the magic and the abundance and all those good things and manifesting. And it's like my plane lands and magical things happen. And that's like the really cool part about astrocartography is when you know the really beautiful places, you can use them. You can really like work with the energy even when you're in the air.
I really struggled living in Miami. I loved the weather, which obviously you're going to tell me go live in LA. It'll have equally good weather, if not better. But I really struggled in Miami. And every time I would get on a plane, it would almost be like everything would unblock from my mind. And it was like I could get 20 hours worth of work done on a 4-hour flight. And I do feel that way a lot of times when I do travel, where I get on a plane and I get so much work done. And I would be curious because we're talking about this, like what does Miami represent on my chart as you look at it?
Well, the closest energy that you have to Miami is Uranus. And the Uranus nodes are closest to Miami. And this is about instability, disruption, can be anxiety, or just feeling a sense of like uneasiness. It's kind of like the lightning in a bottle, so it can bring inspiration and ideas. It's very refreshing in terms of, "Oh, I just got an idea for this, but Uranus does represent feeling a sense of chaos or disruption in some way. I find a lot of people have problems sleeping on this Perrin, or they just overall feel a little bit not fully grounded. Did you feel that way, that kind of Uranus vibes when you were in Miami?
Yes, very unstable, very unsettling, very disruptive, but the disruptive was a negative disruption that transformed my life into a path that was healthier. And so I think the interesting part about this is there is duality in it, where I did feel all of those things. And I really would not be sitting here today having this conversation with you if I did not have that disruption and that instability and that anxiety. So it's you have that duality in it specifically to that. And whenever I would leave, specifically, going to LA or yeah, a lot of times it was to California. Like whether it
Yeah.
was going to Coachella, going to LA for a podcast, I would just fly through work. Like I would get stuff done that I like could not get done, which makes me want to ask a second question, but I'm going to pause so you can react to that
Yeah, I
first.
wanted to say because not only do you have the Uranus nodes, and the nodes represent something fated or significant or like turning up the dial to 100 on the Uranus type energies in Miami, but you also have a sun moon Perrin, and the sun moon represents a new beginning in your life, like a reset. And that's right there next to it.
We reset the fuck out of my life in Miami.
My gosh, it's so literal. The sun moon is new beginnings.
I'm so appreciative that you went into my chart because I think for people listening, my hope is that they get curious and that they start learning more and being open to these ideas, because you never know where it's going to take you in life, and you don't even know what's available until you start being open to different concepts and, in this case, different places.
Yeah. It's powerful how it can change your life. Just the planting of the seed of knowing that different places do hold different energies for you, that you're not crazy when you feel a certain way in that location or that one story. There's a reason why you're there. There's a reason why you feel called to be there, why you wanna stay in a certain location. It's because the story is there and your soul knows. Your soul already knows what it wants to do. The map is just confirming it. It's not telling you what you should do, but it's showing you what you will decide and what you will end up wanting to do maybe at some point in your life. But as long as you trust yourself and you really listen to those inner whispers within you, you'll know exactly where to go.
With everything that we talked about today, what is the message that you want to leave people with?
The more that we really follow our heart and stay soft in that and let our heart guide us to those curiosities, to follow those excitements, we'll always find our way back home to ourselves. So the more you lean into curiosity and follow those excitements, yeah, you'll find your home.
I love this idea of home being at the end of your curiosity, the place that excites you, because I think that a lot of times, even for me, I think about it the other way around, where I want the safety, I want the security. But it is, in fact, when you go outside of that comfort zone that you find the places that truly feel like home.
Yeah.
My last question for you: what is something that someone told you that's impacted your life and you'll never forget?
My mom always told me, I know it's very basic, but she always said, you know, if you love what you do, you can make work out of anything. Like if you follow the thing that you love, you'll make it work. You'll make it happen. It'll work. It'll fall into place. And that's something that's always stuck with me. And I think it's why subconsciously even it's almost like I've been able to pursue a life of courage, whether it's leaving my home in the United States, starting a business, starting a YouTube channel, starting an astrology business. Like it's like I'm always taking risks and taking chances on myself. And I really think it's because of my subconscious belief that my mom has instilled in me, which is if there's something you want to do and you love it, you'll find a way to make it work and make it happen.
It's such an important lesson, because I think as we get older, we lose that part of ourselves that believes that anything can happen. And it is often when we start going back to that belief of like, why can't I do this? Why can't I figure out a way to do this? That we often figure that way out. And so I love that that is the message you're leaving with us today, because my hope is that the curiosity from people's charts will inspire that exact feeling of what can I make possible?
Mm, yeah, totally.
Last question is for you. You can ask me anything you want.
Okay, what are your thoughts about aliens or extraterrestrials? Because this has been something that's been on my mind for like the last year. What do you think? Do you have any theories, any thoughts about where we're at in terms of our evolution on planet Earth and where that if it's possible that there might be something making contact with us now? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's one of those things for me that's out of our control. There's no way, until an alien is making their presence known, for us to know. And I don't think there's any reason to be afraid of it until there's something to be afraid of. I don't think that there's a negative to it of it being believing that there could be aliens, right? I think it's the world is so expansive, and it's like we don't even know what's in the Amazon rainforest.
I
Like
know.
why how we haven't even finished exploring this world, let alone, others. But I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that in a I kind of believe in this sort of idea of fate, where it's
Yeah.
when it's going to happen, and it's out of my
Mhm.
control. So it doesn't scare me or, excite me. It's just sort of out there. And
Yeah.
if and when that happens, I'm all in. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, of course.
Do you think we're going to get to Mars in our lifetime?
This may be a pessimistic view, but I think if we get to Mars in our lifetime, it's because we really fucked up something on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
You don't flee your home in that way unless something happens. And maybe that's a really pessimistic view of it, but there's so much risk based on what I know of the science that I think that there would have to be something catastrophic for the push to Mars, but also at the same time, like, I can't even imagine, like, it takes 2 or 3 years to build a building in like Miami or New York. Like, how are we going to build a whole civilization on a planet that has no water and that has no vegetation? Like, I don't think that it's impossible, but I'm like, in our lifetime, I feel like we could solve some problems here first.
I know. I know. I'm so curious about space things because the astrology is so indicative of like aliens and space and travel and like long distance travel in that way. And I'm just like, how is this going to manifest? Like it's something I think about all the time. Like, and I believe aliens are good. I'm like excited for them to make their presence known,
I mean, if
so
they can solve some of our problems down here on Earth, like, please come down sooner. Like, we're sending the bat
yes,
signal, make your
please
presence known.
I know, seriously. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. But I do think, to your point about it being this bigger thing, like the stars that we look at, the way that you do astrology is looking at something that is millions of miles away. Like it's inconceivable to think of how far away these stars and constellations and planets are. And yet, to your point, it can almost create this map of your life of places that create ease and places that, in my case, created disruption. But it's the eye of the beholder. And it goes back to what we were first talking about. It provides you a lens to look at your life, and you can choose whether it is a negative or a positive. And for me, I definitely did not look at it as a positive when I was in Miami struggling, but I knew that I was figuring something out and I couldn't leave until I did. I think for me, the message that I took away from this conversation, and I hope people do as well, is that the lens in which you look at your life is going to determine how your life turns out. And you can choose a negative lens, or you can choose to figure out the positive in something, but you decide the lens that you look through.
I love it. Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I hope we connect again soon in Paris, because that's on my
Yes.
lines.
Thank you, Charles. You've got great energy here. Yes. Well, definitely come visit me in Paris.
Thank you.
Do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe or follow button, because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. And if today's episode got you thinking, laughing, crying, or maybe even rolling your eyes, write a review and tap to rate. Now let's be real. This convo doesn't end here. Hit us up on socials and don't be shy. Slide into our DMs. We love to connect. Thanks for hanging with us today, and catch you on the next one, because our journey together is just getting started. Remember, stay curious, live authentically, and keep turtzing it up.